Okay, so if you read Rashi carefully, Rashi here says something else, not the way the Marik learns, the way the Ramah learns. I have a mitzvah of kibbutz, but not as much as a son. My chiv is one step less than a son. So put it together, it's not a comma between the chabduch geben, but it's one thing. So what's going on over here? So there's a brilliant shot who wants to learn like this. Can't remember the person. Why do you have a mitzvah to honor your grandfather? Not that there's a separate mitzvah to honor your grandfather. The mitzvah to honor your grandfather is because that's part of kibbutz. Since your father has a chiyuv to honor his father, and you have a chiyuv to honor your father, so al that you have a chiyuv to honor his father because that's part of kibbutz. But once your father is dead, there's no mitzvah of kibbutz since he's no longer able to. So the Gemara in Makkah, when it says that a grandson has no mitzvah, the father was dead. This kid's father was killed, so therefore he no longer has the mitzvah of honoring his grandfather. He's allowed to kill his grandfather. But over here in other places where the grandfather and the father is still alive, then you do have a mitzvah of honoring your grandfather, but it's a step lower because it's going through your father. But because your father, therefore you have a chiv of his father. Just like Aisha's of the wife of your father, you have a mitzvah of being mechabed because it's your father's wife.
What do we talk about also when we get to what's the Baba Machteres? Breaking into his son's house.
That's right.
You know that he's not intending to kill him.
The Machlek is Rashi teaches there about the son does it to the father's house. But you're right. The father's love for his son is far greater than the child's love for their parents. Mishnah, the Pumas, the army of Especianos goes to our son. They made all these kind of gzeres. When the war came in, the battle came in, and they made life very difficult for the Eden. They made a gzera. We shouldn't enjoy life so much anymore. They were glazed on these wreaths of chsanim to wear these crowns. On the edus, some musical instrument. The Pumas showed Titus when Especianos was Titus' father, and the way the Gemara Gittin tells the story, it happened, just a few months. He was a general, and then he had to go to the back because they found that he became Kirich and said he can become the king. And then his son Titus took over and destroyed Yisrael. Rashi here says it was 52 years apart. So the Mephoshim have a difficult time trying to reconcile the years. Yaakov Emden, who's a historian and he constantly writes about history in his Pirush Yavitz, he says it must be a mistake in the Mishnah. Or no, he actually says worse than that. He says that it's not Rashi. Talmud Toyeth put it into the Gemara. It can't be Rashi because it's an apparent mistake. Others say that we're not talking about Titus, we're talking about somebody else called Titus or something, some other name. The Puma showed Titus Godra is Kalas. And when the Titus came along, they made it worse. It was much worse for the Eden. So they banned even Kalas from wearing these Ataras. So also they should not teach your son Greek, even though we find Gemara, I will see Gemara later. The Puma's Achim, but then the third time, some say we're talking about now about Kochva, many years later, we're talking about when they came back and they raised Yerushalayim, further within Titus. Godra shouldn't go in. They used to put beautiful golden things all over around her wagon to cover her up, make her look so special. But inside the city, they said yes, it's all right. You take the caliber part of here. This we're not going to. Asa will suspend that Easter, and very interesting the Gemara why. When a May passed away, Batul Moshe Meshalem. He used to give Meshalem, as Rashi brings, a third of his day. He gave Shiurim, a third day he gave Meshalem, a third day Agavatah, and to explain what he was saying. And we said it doesn't compare to Shlomo HaMelech. Shemaiz Ben Azai, when Ben Azai passed away, he was such a masbid that he said that anybody who doesn't have children is like Shefer Damim. I said, no, what about you? He said, what should I do? Nafshi Chashke B'Tayr, I can't help it. The Shemaiz Ben Zaym Batul Hadashonim, like we said in Haggadah. Abel Zai was waiting for Ben Zaym, Achadosh Ben Zaym. The Shemaiz Rabbi Kiva, and Rabbi Kiva, the Veld says that what do you mean Achadosh Ben Zaym? Ben Zaym, and Pigi Yoba says, Ezo Chachma Loim Ben Koladim. That was his best Rosh. And therefore, Ben Azai said, now that I'm 18 years old, nobody's listening to me. But now that Ben Zaymer said you should listen to anybody, okay. He used to dash in every letter, every tag, everything. Gave so much cover to Taylor. Nothing is extra. He did so many miracles that in Mauritania. He had his daughter's vinegar turned into oil, and he had these wolves, these sheep or goats bringing in these wolves on the horns. Extended the person's beams. Mr. Mesavesha Ketanta, when Abis Ketanta passed away, Posca Hasidim, he's from the last Hasidim. Lomni Ketanta, so Ketanta, amongst them, he was the from the lower level, and he was the last. Mr. Mesavesha bottle Ziva Chachma, the Ziva of Chachma, Rashi, he does not know what that means. Mr. Mesavesha Zakim bottle covered of Tater. The cover of Tater was bottled because he commanded all kinds of respect, and that was over. Also, the Gemara Megillah, we had Rashi brings that they used to stand and learn, and after him, people became weak. You had to sit down and learn Torah. Mesa Tahara appreciates all of the things perished with him. Mesa Bishmal the Pabi. Bottle Ziva Kuna, the Ziva of Kuna that passed away. Rashi says that he used to invite all the Kohanim to his house on Shabbos for a meal. So it sounds like he was a Yisrael. Others say he was a Kohen Gadol, and he that as well. Questionable if Rebbe put this in the mission himself, but when Rebbe passed away, they stopped all the humbleness. Argument of this is now Gemara, continuation of Mishnah. Everybody became embarrassed because the people with the status, the people of the stature, became much lower. The chafforation, the shame, the head, and the dalgal on Shemaisa, and they lowered the standard on Shemaisa. The governor Baal Israel, Baal Lashon, all these wicked people, and the Baal Lashon, they're the ones who became now the leaders. They ain't Deutsch, they ain't Mavak, nobody's searching the truth, nobody's looking around. They ain't Shoyal, nobody's asking, what are we supposed to do now? We have nobody but to rely on the Eibishter. What happened was that the rabbis now are treated like the shamoshim, the sofrai, like the school teachers. The sofrai goes a step lower, chazan, like the shamoshim, the gaboim. Chazani come down, and the shamoshim are treated like the average folk. The amadara, everybody's standard is going lower and lower. They ain't shoyal, they ain't mavakish. Nobody's searching the truth, and nobody's asking. I'll be Shemaim. That's the line of the Eibishter. The equals Mashiach will come chutzpah yaske. It'll be chutzpah. The yoke yam will be inflation, hyperinflation. Hagef and titin period. The grapes will still give the wine, produce wine. But yaim yoke, and yet for no reason, the yaim yoke. You know why? Because there's heavy taxes. Malchus to hapich leminas, and then you're going to find that governments are going to become apocryphal. They're going to deny religion, and they're going to every single thing that's happening. It's interesting that you have some of the Rishonim writing. Everything already happened in our times. Why hasn't Mashiach come? They couldn't imagine what's happening in our times. And there's nobody giving any muster anymore. All these gathering places we used to be Beshamedesh learning Torah will be empty now, so it'll be places for nus. Exactly. So all these places where Chacham used to congregate will become Batis Nus because there's nobody else there. Nobody's learning Torah. So Baruch Hashem, that's being turned around now, and there's so many yeshivas and kelim and so on. There's a beautiful letter from the there's a beautiful letter from Kotzker. He wrote a letter. This is going back 170 years, 180 years. He wrote a letter that there's a country called America, and he says it says in the Chumash, "Ki yarchiv gevulcha," when Hashem will broaden your boundaries. Normally, people are talking about that Yisrael, and you bechar to the market. He says talking about America. And America will become the refuge for Klal Yisrael, and there will be more Torah in America than there ever was in Babylon and Yisrael. And at that time, America was a treif in Medina. Nobody went to America. It was an amazing letter. The Galil will be destroyed. Gavlin Yosem, and this place called Gavlin will be also destroyed. The people from the border will be circling from town to town. They won't have anywhere to rest. The Chacham is safe in Tisrach, and all the wisdom will be turned foul. The Yidei Yemos, people can despise scholars, and can despise those people that make fun of people who are God-fearing. The Emes Tainadedis, truth will be lost. Now, Ardim plays Kenny Abinu, the children are going to shame the elders. The elders are so scared of the kids on the buses. Instead of the kids, making room for the elders will make room for the kids. Ben Menavalov, Bas Kamaba, Ima, a son will embarrass his father, and the daughter will stand up against his mother. Kalaba Chamais, imagine the daughter-in-law will stand up to her mother-in-law. Not sure exactly what that means. The Gemara always said we had in Yavamis, and we had also in the site that a mother-in-law and daughter never got on, and they're not even trusted as witness. Yeah, so what do you mean all of a sudden it's going to happen? Maybe it's a good thing. You'll turn out to be your biggest enemies are your own family. After those who are close to you are your worst enemies. The generation will be like Klov in the famous shot that like a dog always leads, but they look behind to see where anybody's following. So the leaders are not leaders. We'll have more machlekes who follows who. Haben einem is bayish ma'avi. A kid can do whatever he wants. He's not embarrassed for his own father. What could we do then? What do we have left? Only the Eibishter. When do we say where these wreaths made out of salt and made out of sulfur? They used to make it out of stones of salt, Rashi says, and it was transparent. and it looked beautiful. And then they would make all kinds of colors and paint on it, and they use sulfur to paint in it, like they do on golden and other kalim. And they stopped doing that because that's too pretty, and we don't want to be too pretty. We're ostentatious now. But if the man of flowers, roses, and hadassim mutter is permitted. Shmuel Amar Avshal Shaved also Shulchan Shechel mutter. Other things which are cheap, which are better, nothing special, you can. Lev Amar Avshal Kan Shechel is also. The whole idea is also. You want to write, also these things are also as well. What's the edus? A tabla de chad pumet, some kind of bell with one clapper. Not even a full one. He made a tambourine. Came along his father again. Rabba Nabhuna, and Nabhuna loved his son Rabba, as we had just now in the Gemara before. But he saw that his son made a tambourine. He went ahead. He wanted to play musical instruments. He went ahead and he destroyed it. If you're gonna play a tambourine tomorrow, somebody's gonna use these bells that they used to use for music. These bells, not some bell, they make these for music, and who knows where we'll go. And you'll start dancing soon. If you want, put a piece of material on top of an urn, on top of a pitcher, and make some noise over there. If you make it stretch it out, you can learn how to play, like a xylophone or these kind. They make little instruments. The puma that goes out to the kala is my. What's a tarakala? That's the tiara which had the tzir of Yerushalayim. You could make it kippah shel milas. You can make like a hat with white wool, and like a hat you can wear. It's not so obvious. We also banned chupet chsanim. What's chupet chsanim? The hoidis hamus havis. It was like a cover, a mantle they had, and they had all kinds of gold strips hanging from there, and we also wore like a hat a little bit. We could do is parapripius, like some kind of wooden hat, which is not very pretty at all, and then hang from there some things that's not so ostentatious. The tell you how much it's whatever you want. It's all like a zeichel churban. We don't want to go out of our way. Don't you agree? We also have the story about Baba Kama. When the Malka Beis Chashmonai Hurkin told the two brothers. Alexander Yanai died. His wife, who was the sister of Shimon Shatter, took over. Alexandra Salome, and then when she died, she had two sons, and they were fighting with each other. There's two Girsais in the Gemara who was the main victor. Anyway, unfortunately, both brothers decided to go to seek Rome to help them. And that's the biggest problem. Yeah, thank you. You brought them in, and then the rest is history, unfortunately. They were fighting with each other. Hurkinus was on the outside, and he brought Rome, and Aristobulos was on the inside. The Cholay maybe the Mishalshin did in Bekupa. One thing they all agreed, the base has to continue to have function. You have to bring kabbanis. So every day, Mishalshin dinner, and they used to lower down dinner Bekupa the box of Mainland to medium. They used to bring a carbon tummy. There was an old man. There's an old man in Yerushalayim that knew how to like sign language in Greek. Laws lahem bechachmi. He couldn't betray the people there; they would kill him. So he spoke to the people on the other side, but he was meramis to them in Greek language. As long as they bring these kabbanas, you can't overcome them. The next day, they lowered money in a box. And they brought up a pig. As soon as they reached halfway up the wall, the pig put the fingers in the wall, and the whole edge of throw, the 400 parsa began to tremble and shake. As Rashi says, the king, which means the Eibishter was very unhappy. At that moment, they said, "Cursed be the person cursed should be the person who raises chazedim at Yisrael," even though it was already cursed before, but now it's even worse. And cursed be the person teaching the son chachmas yivanis. That's that year we said that year they had to bring the oimer meganet from far away. We want it to be fresh, usually near the shrine. Far away from the garden of Sikkim. And the two lechem loaves of bread again. Probably want to bring as close as possible. We were bringing from far away because everything was destroyed by the Romans around Yerushalayim. Ain is not so. You tell me Greek is no good. In Yisrael, they spoke a butchered up Aramaic. And Rashi says that's the Yerushalmi. Looking, even though we can read Aramaic and Bavli, it's very difficult Aramaic in Yerushalmi. It's called Lashon Sursi, like a Kruma Lashon, like Yiddish is a butchered up German. Lama, why talk in Yerushalayim Lashon Sursi? Ella, Lashon Kodesh. You want to talk Lashon Kodesh or talk Lashon Yavanis? which is difficult to understand because the Rishonim all saying in Sanhedrin that you test there, why is it that the whole argument of the alphabet we have today is the alphabet mamol. So they say that they used to speak the alphabet. What do you mean? They stopped using the alphabet. They used a different alphabet in between, Sav Kanani, because they said Lashon Kodesh is a holy language. They didn't use it for their own mundane stuff. They only use it for holy things. Their own mundane stuff. They spoke the local vernacular. So yeah. So but here it says clearly, speak Lashon Kodesh or Lashon Yivanis. I'm going to be said the Bible Lashon Ami. Why are you speaking Lashon Ami? It's not such a nice language. And Malachim don't even understand it. Lashon Kodesh, Lashon Parsi. Speak Lashon Parsi, which is a much nicer language. So Gemara says Lashon Yivanis l'chud v'chach Yivanis l'chud. It's a language of Yivanis, which is nicer, but we're talking about Chachma Yivanis here. The Chachma Yivanis, me Asidus Moshe, Chachma Yivanis Aser. V'amar Rabbeinu B'Shmuel Meshum Rashbang Manasib Bezat Basik. Ainli Oilala Nafshi. I became, pride, for myself. The Kolbanite Edie from all the daughters looked ugly compared to all the girls in my city. There were 1,000 kids in our yeshiva. Chamish made lumber trader, 500 trader. The Chamish made lumber Chachma Yivanis. You learn Chachma Yivanis. So we're saying Chachma Yivanis also something that was promoted. The only two surviving people, because they were wiped out, unfortunately, is myself and my cousin from Asya. Was the Shiny Mission. You know where they learned Chachma Yivanis? The Kraven and Malchus. They were close to the king. And the Tanya is a machlek of Asya is the name of a place, or Asya is Asia Minor. The Tanya, which usually means Turkey or around that time, we learn generally to cut your hair in that way is like following the game. It's forbidden. Ben Reuben will learn they allowed him to look like the goyim. Why? To cut the malchus. He was close to the royalty field and he had to follow the rules. And he was an advocate on behalf of the union. We needed him. So he learned Chachma Yivanis. Mr. Craven the malchus. Same over here. They allowed Chachma Yivanis. The Puma Zachan goes to take the Kalabapari. My time should see you know what they allow the wagons to go with all the beautiful decorations? This way she's modest, nobody can see the color. And that's much sneeze. Sefer Torah was just concealed because he was Torah. B'Shemei said, Rabbi Shua Butler Rabbi Shua passed away because he was the one who used to always debate all those dukim. He had more b'chaydas and so on. And Chagiga, he said, if I pass away, don't worry, the goyim also their chacham will be lowered as well. And Mishmei Makil Butler's right traded the strong ones of Taylor because he was so deep. The Staten Mayan of Chachma and the Welshmans of Chachma. So Mishmei Ablaz Butler Ataras Chachma. When Ablaz Mazai passed away, he Mabatul the Ataras Chachma, the crown of Chachma, because he was rich and learned. Shatet Chamim Ashram, the beauty of Chachma, the wealth as well, because people in respect him twofold. Mishmei Chaim Daisa Butler Anshe Maisa, we said before, Anshe Maisa. Mishmei Abayis. Ben Ketani, but Chassidim, and before Abba Yosef Ben Ketani, he's actually called Ben Ketani. It's not only a description, but that's his name. So Mektani Chassidim, he's from the small Chassidim. Mishemes Ben Azai Botla Shakdanim, the Talmid, the Masmidim. Shred B'day Botla Shanim. All of the boy Arba, locust rose, the Rabu Tzaris, and had so many Tzaris. Mishemes Rebbe Huchputz had many more Tzaris. Mishemes Rebbe Botla Nova Yichet Amar Rabbi Yosef Tana Lotista Nova the Ikano. Don't mention another because what about me? Famous question. What do you mean, what about me? That's the greatest. What kind of news is that? So I saw once a beautiful shot. Rabbi Yosef was supposed to become a Rosh Yeshiva, but he gave it up. And he said, you know what? Let Rabbi become a Rosh Yeshiva. And 22 years he waited. Rabbi was only 18 years old. Rabbi Yosef is much older. Rabbi became a Rosh Yeshiva for 20. He passed away at the age of 40. So Rabbi Yosef said, look at my story. Look at my story. Not that I'm the honor. Look at my story here. That the people around me were all unloving. There were so many more people worthwhile, and they chose me. They chose me, even though I didn't deserve it, and everything else. So that's what it means. Tisanov. Me personally means the people around me. Rabbi Yosef only said in Shavuos, "Ilam hayom kama Yosef b'shuka." There's so many Yosefs in the market. Sounds again that he was being very arrogant. Now that I learned Torah, I'm never no. So I saw beautiful. I heard a beautiful shot, and that is, if you don't have Torah, then your ethics keep on changing. Look what's going on in the world today. Every 5 years they come up with something new and they push the envelope. But if you have Torah, the Torah is emes, and emes always stays the same path. This is like Ilal Hayema. If it wouldn't have been for Shavuos or Matan Torah, Kama Yosef, you know how many Yosefs I would be? Depends which day I am. Today I think this way. Tomorrow I think this way. I'll be many Yosefs. But now that I learned Torah, there's only one Yosef. I'll go down the straight and narrow. So someone wants to finish because I want to save this for the 9 days. Otherwise, this is okay. So that finishes the Satan tomorrow.